Hello, my name is Pablo Selener and I'm a technical account manager at Epic Games. Today I'm going to show you where Unreal fits in a modern product design pipeline and some of the tools you'll need in order to run a successful design review. This talk is split into two. This is the first part, and I'm going to be talking about the Automotive Design Studio, how to import your data, and mainly the variant manager. As an end result, we should get a vehicle with swappable options that's going to be easy to maintain. Since I'm going to talk about Unreal inside an automotive design studio, I thought it would be good to introduce what an automotive design studio is or how it's usually structured so that people that might not be super familiar with it might be able to understand what we're trying to do here. I went ahead and I made a graph of how data typically flows to and from the 3D visualization team. I didn't really put data flow between different departments. I thought that would be too confusing. Take into account that this is just a stereotypical design studio. Some of them might be structured a little bit different. And from here, you can see that the free visualization team is a major hub for understanding data. All these different teams do a different part of the design process. You get clay modeling, which are people creating either a quarter scale or a full scale model, physical model of the vehicle that's in design. These are pretty big, and especially the one-to-one scale models, they're super heavy. This data gets scanned by the 3D scanning team, and they use very, very high accuracy scanners that generate very dense point clouds. These point clouds are sometimes sent to the visualization team, but a lot of times they're sent to the digital modeling team, which would create surfaces using this point cloud as a guide. These surfaces are usually NURB surfaces, especially later on in the process. Early on, they might be subdivision surfaces, but usually they are NURBS. This data is usually sent to the 3D visualization team when they want things visualized. Again, I'm not showing the data that's going from digital modeling to, say, engineering because it wouldn't really benefit this example I'm giving, but there's way more stuff happening in the science studio than this. So with this, you can, as a 3D visualization specialist, you can grab that data and show it in a visually compelling way, together with data that you would get, say, from the design team. These can be vehicle designers that are doing, say, sketching a rim, or maybe they're doing a very basic model, a very rough model of a part they want to see in the vehicle. You get data from the CMF team, which means color, materials, and finishes. And these are the people that decide, for example, which cloth goes in the headliner, or which leather goes in the seat, or what carpet goes on the footwells. You also get data from engineering because the parts, they have a way to attach to other parts, and there's a lot of functionality in vehicles. Sometimes there's even data flow between the people that are creating the UI UX or user interface user experience, sometimes called human machine interface or HMI. You get data flow between these people through visualization because sometimes they want to show 3D data in the screens, and sometimes they want to show their designs inside the vehicle. So imagine as an animated texture of the design for the latest mapping app inside the vehicle, for example. What you can see with this is that this is very different than your typical game or VFX pipeline, in which the data is not meant to be put inside a 3D engine. The data is originally meant to describe the product in a way that it can be manufactured, not necessarily visualized. So as you're repurposing data, you will find a lot of issues with this data that have to be addressed before including them in a master model. So what could be some of the issues that you could find while importing this data? Well, this is not really a talk about the data preparation process, so I'll go over these a little bit more synthetically. But here's some of them. First, you will likely need to tessellate, especially nerve surfaces. And tessellation is the act of converting those nerve surfaces or mathematically pure models into a collection of triangles. And the reason we do this is because you can only rasterize triangles. You might need to unify normals. So your model might have some patches that have flipped normals because it just didn't need all the normals to be aligned to manufacture that part. You might need to stitch different patches from these nerve surfaces, which might look good in the original application, but once you tessellate them, you might get a seam in there. You might need to remove redundant surfaces. So, for example, you might get two surfaces that are Z-fighting because they're in the exact same position. And the reason you might get a duplicate set of surfaces is because they're representing something like, for example, the glue or a glazing, maybe, which you don't really need to visualize. Another thing you might need to do is to mirror some parts. Maybe the modeler didn't have time to, or wasn't far enough in the process to be able to mirror those assemblies. You might need to detach different parts of the assembly. Some parts in the vehicle are made with more than one manufacturing process in which once they're done, they look like they're two different parts, but in actuality they're one. So you might get one part, but they would look like two different parts. You might want to restructure your scene hierarchy. A lot of the times when you import complex assemblies from an engineering software, a scene outliner might look pretty crazy, and you might want to simplify or redo this so that it's a little bit better to maintain in the future. And a lot of times you might need to remodel a lot of soft surfaces like seats because again, they will be made for a manufacturing process, but they won't necessarily have small wrinkles or look inviting enough for visualizing. And some details might be missing altogether, like, for example, stitches. So what's the next step? You've been getting all this data from different departments for a reason. All these people, what they want to do is they want to see how the things that they're working on will look in the future once things will be manufactured, once things will be in context. The modeler working on the fender wants to see how it will look right next to the hood that his friend next to him is modeling. The designer that just sketched a new rim wants to see how it would look in the car that's in production. Maybe this is a rim that's coming out next year. You mainly want to compare things and look at them in context. You want to visualize different versions of things, either previous versions of the same thing or another thing that looks different, like two different sets of rims. So for this, the Very Manager is fantastic. It allows you to assemble different versions of your scene in a way that is easy to understand and to maintain. The emphasis here is on maintain because a lot of the things will be coming to you in a design studio very, very fast, one after the other. And being able to create one of these variants very quickly is going to be very important. Of course, you could be using the Variant Manager to do things like a product configurator for retail, and you could put that in a dealer, and people would be able to switch between different versions of the rims they want, or the seats, or the interior finishes. But in this case, we're still going to imagine we're inside an automotive design studio just to be consistent with the example. So let's pretend this is our vehicle master file, and the idea is that we can run a design review out of this file later on. So we'll be able to compare different things in the vehicle. And during this week in the imaginary design studio, there's a designer that wants to send us a couple of rims he's been working on. Now, one of them is a more advanced concept, and he was able to get the help of a molder. So there is a 3D model, but the other one is just a sketch he's been working on, and he just wants to visualize it in context in the car. We're going to import first the texture that he's sending us. And for that, I'm going to just toss it right here. And there's a couple of things to note with these. First, you can see that the transparency is correctly saved. Make sure that in your 2D application that there is transparency. But very importantly, make sure that your image is power of 2 and that is a square image. If it's not, then you might have issues with bit mapping, which means when you zoom in or zoom out or get closer or further away from the surfaces, they might not display correctly. So to map it, to put it right here on the rim, we would need to put it in a 3D object. And in this case, is a good idea to just put a plane in the scene and then to create a material with these. So let's just create a new material right here. Just right click material and let's call it m underscore rim. Double click. And what we're going to do is we're going to go here to textures and we're going to try and drop that texture right there. Now, we need to be able to hook up the opacity, and it's not going to allow us here. So what we need to do is we need to change the blend mode here, and you could make it translucent, but in this case, there's not going to be anything that's halfway opaque. It's either fully opaque or not because the rim is there's other material there or there is none. So a masked material is going to be more efficient. So I'm going to make it masked, hook this into the base color. You can already see that. I'm going to change that to plain so we can visualize it. And in this case, let's hook the alpha into the opacity mask right here. And you can already see that it's looking pretty good. Not much more we need to do here. If you wanted to reuse this for other rims, I would recommend using a material instance. But in this case, I think we're good. I can close this. I can go here to the materials and I can go to my M rim material, drag and drop it, and you can see it's looking pretty sharp already. So the other thing I'm going to do is put this where it should be here in the vehicle. And for that is, remember what I was saying before, that you want to have a pretty good scene hierarchy. And this one's already pretty good. It would not be this nice if I had imported it directly from CAD and had done nothing. But in this case, it's pretty good. An easy way to know where to put it is just to click on one of these surfaces, and it would expand the tree right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it on the front left, drag and drop right there inside that actor. Now when you do that, it's going to offset all the transforms here so that it stays in the same place in the scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the rotation and reset the location. I'm not going to mess around with the scale because it's compensating somewhere in here. There's a scale of 10, so I don't want to mess with that right now. And let's just move it out a little bit. And we'll probably need to scale it down like maybe 9.5. Still seems a little bit big. Let's scale it. Let's keep scaling it actually and see what looks good. So 0.52. Yeah, let's make this 0.05. Looks about right for this example. Of course, it's overlapping with the other one. I don't mind that right now because we're going to fix that later when we go into our variants. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to import the other rim, and this one is an FBX. And in this case, because I know it's a pretty simple scene, I could just drag and drop it. So what I'm going to do is go where my geometries are, because I like my things to be organized, and drop it right here. And what you will see is FBX import options will come up. and I'm going to reset them to default. Two things I would like to highlight here, and make sure to import your tangents as well, not just your normals. And this is optional, but you don't really need to create materials if you're going to use materials that are already in the scene. It will look, you will get less things in your scene created that you're not going to use. So, and there's no textures. So I'm going to import, and not importing the materials doesn't mean that it doesn't have them, that it doesn't have the slots. There's two slots here for materials, one for the lug nuts and the other one for the rim that are created. So what I'm going to do now is toss that geometry in there, and I'm going to go to, not here, let's just get some materials from somewhere else and just quickly shade it. Maybe like that. Yeah, that looks about right. So same thing. What we're going to do now is grab this guy right there and parent it and translate it. So same group. I've been just hiding things um, to, so that I know what I'm doing. And let's reset these guys. And let's see. Oh, it's 180 degrees. So let's rotate it 180 degrees. And it looks like the position is about right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around the car and duplicate all these and name them properly. And I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've gone ahead and duplicated all my rims and put them in the proper folders. So now what we're going to be doing is actually creating the variants so that we can visualize them one by one instead of having them all on top of each other like this, which wouldn't be very useful. So in order to create a variant, first let's think about where we want to put it in here. In my case, I'll just leave them inside my blueprint. So you would right click here and go to miscellaneous and go to level variant sets, and let's call it level variant sets, and that needs to live in the scene as well. So make sure you drop it in the scene. If you don't see that, if you don't see the level variant sets, you will need to go here to edit plugins and look for variants and load both of these. So in here, you can go and either double click it, or if you look at it in here in the scene, you can open the variant manager right here, and it will open this window. So what I'd be doing is creating a new set, and the set is like a group. And I'm going to press F2 and name it rims, and I'm going to add one variant inside, and I'm going to name it as the first rim that I want to have. Let's call it ADV. And I'm going to be putting in here all these rims, all of them, because I need to track their visibility in each and every single one of these. So I'm going to put all of these here, drag and drop, and here I'm going to search for visibility. And now when I click in each one of these, it's going to show me if it's visible or not. Now, because right now in the scene they're visible here. So what I'm going to be doing is, first I'm going to duplicate this one before I change it. And I'm going to make everything that doesn't say ADV. So deselect all those and make them invisible. And then double click, and whoops, it seems like I put the tires. And so if something like that happens, don't freak out. You can select them there and turn them on again. right? And we actually don't need them. So you can right click, remove them. And there you go. Now only these are visible. So what I'm going to be doing here on the other one, first I'm going to quickly remove the tires from there. So right click, remove. Don't press delete. If you press delete, it will delete this guy. And what I'm going to be doing is everything but HRE are going to be invisible. So if I rename this HRE, you will see that when I double click, it already switches, right? Now the issue of doing it like this is that, let's say tomorrow I get another rim, and not only I need to create a new variant, that's not the issue, I need to go back and add that wheel to all of these so that I can tell it to be invisible in each one of these variants. That's not very maintainable, so there's an easier way to do stuff like this. That is called a switch actor. So if you search switch up here in place actor, you will see something that's called a switch actor. And if you put it here in the scene, um, now this actor will switch inside within what's inside. So you see here in its properties is a selected option. There's nothing because there's no children. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to come here and I'm going to name this wheel FL switch, and I'm going to put it here in the wheel front left. Because I like being clean, I'm going to reset all my transforms. I don't really need them. And I'm going to grab all my rims, my 4 rims. Actually, before doing that, I'm going to delete this variant. And for this one, I'm going to make everything, reset it, and make sure everything's visible. And now I'm going to just right click, remove this, because we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to grab all these 4 rims, so the front left, and we're going to parent them inside the switch. So now when you look at the switch, you will see that the drop down is only the stuff that's inside. And these could be groups or static meshes. So this is already set up. It took us like a second to do it. So how do you track this? You just drag and drop a single actor. Actually, you put selected option. And in here, you can see this is going to be ABV. So when you double click, that's ABV. You can duplicate that guy, go here, and say, hey, this is going to be HRE. And that would change it to HRE. You just duplicate it again and tell it here, hey, that's going to be for star and star, and so on and so forth. And you would add one of each for each wheel. In case you want to keep them parented like this for functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and do this 4 wheels, and I'll be back in a second. So having done that, now I can select each one of these, and it cycles through the wheels. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I just want to create a quick one, a quick variant set for the paint. And for that, I'm going to select any part of the body that has paint, and I'm going to go here and touch the magnifying glass. Let's create one here, and right click and asset actions, select actors using this asset, and that will select all the actors in the scene that are using this paint silver. And now I'm going to drag and drop all of these guys in here. So let's just look for material, select, and there you go. Now I know I don't need this actor because it's just an actor, so I'm going to just remove it. And you can see here we have all of them are tracking the silver car paint. So let's call this silver. And let's right click, duplicate, and let's call this blue, and go here and select blue right there, or you can just drag and drop it from here. It's the same thing. And if we click it, there you go. The other thing you can do with these that's very, very cool is you can go and make an icon here. So let's do just that right now, and right click and set from viewport. Maybe a little bit closer. Set from viewport. Yeah, set from viewport. Set from viewport. Set from viewport. So a lot easier to understand what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and create a couple more for the paint, and I'll create a couple of thumbnails there, and I'll see you in a second. So let's recap what we did. We imported some data, we organized it in the scene structure, we created a variant set, and we placed variants in them with thumbnails. We looked at the switch actor, and we were able to select objects by the material and quickly create variants out of them. Now, there's more advanced things you can do with variants. You can actually make a variant run a piece of logic or a blueprint, and you can have variants change other variants by doing that. Lastly, you can run the product configurator template, and you can have a dynamic user interface that would be created on play. Because if you wanted to grab this project and package it for distribution, you would not get the variant manager. So you want some kind of user interface on play if you're going to distribute your project. On the next part of this class, we're going to visit all those things, and you'll be able to see how to augment the variants, and how to properly use the product configurator template with other data.